Hello and welcome to another episode of Cowboys Takeover Podcast. Aaron James with you. Thank you for joining today. We're in our pregame episode coming up on week 16 against the Detroit Lions. Wise counsel Jason Kent is still under the weather. So Jason, we miss you, bro. Looking forward to having you back next week. So today is going to be another shorter episode as we get into our pregame discussion. And we're going to follow the format that we typically do going into our pregame show, starting with reviewing our opponent and their season so far. So why don't we go ahead and dive into it? Cowboys looking for a bounce back game against a playoff team and still numerically a chance to get the number one overall seed in the NFC. But let's take a look at the Detroit Lions season so far. And, they opened the season, the NFL season, with the Kansas City Chiefs, have that 1-point victory, upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl champs. And we've come to really see what kind of team the Chiefs are this year. So not that big of a surprise now that it's in hindsight. Seattle takes them into overtime and is able to drive down at the end there to steal a victory in Detroit. And you know what? Outside of that, they haven't faced a playoff team unless you say, a team from the NFC South like the Bucks, Carolina, New Orleans. They really haven't faced another playoff team until just about now. Oh, sorry, the Baltimore Ravens laid a slacking on them 38-6. So I guess you can argue, when they go against tier 1 teams, they just haven't performed. They're going to be looking to make a statement coming into this game. They're on a 2-game winning streak. They just beat a rival in the Minnesota Vikings, and I was kind of half watching that game with some fantasy football implications for me and Amon-Ra St. Brown going into that game. But Nick Mullins kind of did his thing. He looked like a starting quarterback in that game, and I think that is going to bode well for our Dallas Cowboys coming into this game. So what do we have? How have the Detroit Lions been making kind of this type of run? Well, let's talk a little bit about some of their key players. So key players, Jared Goff has continued to be a productive quarterback. I would say a high tier 2. Some games he does look like a tier 1, but there are kind of some of those games, just like anybody else, where, if he's under pressure, if he has, he is human. He'll make some mistakes throughout the season. He has 10 interceptions, I think, which is going to be probably in the top 10 for quarterbacks. He's been sacked 28 times, 3,900 yards on the year so far. He's likely, based on his average, is going to hit 4,500 yards this season, and that's probably going to put him in the top 5 when it's all said and done. David Montgomery. Now, keep in mind, this team traded DeAndre Swift. So they put a lot of trust in David Montgomery to carry the load, but he has really been splitting the load with their rookie first-round draft pick, Jamar Gibbs. But Montgomery is leading the way with 910 yards. This guy is a physical running back. This Montgomery and Gibbs tandem reminds me a lot of the Elliott and Pollard. One was your thumper, and the other one is their sideline speed. So that's going to be a challenge for us coming into this game. If Detroit is looking to make any type of statement, they're going to want to get that 150-yard plus rushing figure against our defense at home to take control of this game and try to steal it. Where Cowboys are favored, I believe it's 5 or 6 points this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he is leading the wide receiving core by over double the amount of targets. I think the next wide receiver has 55. He's just over 100, I believe, now on the season. 1,200 yards. I mean, this guy, he's on my fantasy. He was my first wide receiver I drafted this year. because I just knew in this sophomore year he was going to continue to build off of all the momentum he created last year and the chemistry with Jared Goff, and that's proven to be the case. He is not going to blow the top off a defense with his speed, but his route running abilities. It's going to be really fun to see him against Gilly and against Bland, to see if he's going to be able to shake those guys off on man-to-man type situations, which Cowboys play a lot of. From a defensive perspective, they're led in sacks by Aiden Hutchinson, who comes off the edge. Fortunately for us, he's going to be matched up most likely with Terrence Steele and Edoga, our fill-in left tackle. It looks like Tyrone Smith is probably not going to play. I don't have really any confidence that he's a for sure go as of right now. So fortunately for us, their best edge rusher is coming off the right side, and Terrence Steele is, a starter, and he's been getting better game after game. So hopefully that bodes well for the Cowboys. And as far as their secondary is the weakest part of that defense. Kirby Joseph leads the team with 4 interceptions, but really outside of that, like I mentioned, this secondary let Nick Mullins look like a starting quarterback. He had several pass completions of over 15 plus yards. He was throwing down the field quite a bit in that game. So I expect Dak to look at that tape, and we're going to have some opportunities. I could see at least 2 deep shots to Cooks. Maybe we can get Tolbert in there for another opportunity. But that's a little bit about their star players. So let's kind of talk about our offensive attack going into this game. So like I mentioned, with their secondary being their it's kind of our strength versus their weakness, our passing game versus their passing defense. So I expect Dak to drop back at least 35 times in this game. Of course, unless we go up on a big lead going into halftime or something like that. But I expect this to be pretty close in the first half, with the Cowboys really kind of pulling away in the second half. I expect Dak Prescott to have easily over 300 yards in this game. After watching some of the tape against Lions rivals and the Vikings, their defense, they set up in a lot of man-to-man. Now in the red zone, they do tend to transition into zone. So that could be a problem for us. So expect us to kind of look to run the ball more in the red zone and when we're within 10 yards from the goal line. With that man-to-man coverage, I expect CD to be able to do his thing. Fergie, Gallup was very quiet. I don't think he had any receptions in their last game. And I expect Gallup to either be a deep man opportunity along with Cooks in this game. Gallup, even though he's been let's call it a letdown from that number 2 wideout position, he does come up with the crucial catches when you need them. If you recall, in the Eagles game, it was a 3rd and long, and this guy, he does make the catches when you put him on him. He's great with his feet, keeping them in bounds, falling in traffic, whatever the case may be. He's been pretty dependable. In fact, I can't recall a time where he's dropped a 4th down pass where I think CD has at least 1, if not 2, or maybe even 3. So I expect Gallup to play a role in this game along with Cooks and Fergie. I would say maybe four catches, 55 yards, something in that arena, maybe a touchdown in the red zone. I can easily see that. As far as our rushing attack, defense, the strength of the defense is their defensive line, getting after the quarterback. So protection is going to be crucial. But when it comes to the running game, it's going to be challenging for us. Let's call it what it is. Their linebacking core is pretty good. The linebacker that I had just showed here leads the team in sacks. That is Alex Anzalone with tackles. He leads the team in tackles with 112. So I think it's going to be a struggle for us to get to that 100-yard figure in rushing, but when you're at home, you put up almost 40 points at home throughout the season. I think the hard count is on your side. I think there could be an opportunity for us to go over 100. I say more than likely, though. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to hit that 100-yard marker in this game. But again, with our being a passing offense, I expect us to be successful there. As far as our defense goes, the wide receiving core, these are route runners led by Amon-Ra St. Brown. Their tight end, Laporta, has been doing his thing and really filling in the shoes completely. Once they trade away TJ Hawkinson, Laporta has been doing his thing. He's second in the team in receptions with 74. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay, look at this. I got to correct myself. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 146 targets. The next closest wide receiver, 55. So Amon-Ra has almost 3 times, not 2 times, but 3 times the amount of targets over the other wide receivers. So he's going to be a major focus. And to me, if you can take out Amon-Ra from the game, that really depletes their potency, their big play ability in a major way. Not completely, because these other guys can still ball. And I mean, Reynolds, he's a pretty fast guy himself. So you got to watch it there. But in my opinion, they're going to try to run the ball. They're going to try to pound us with Montgomery. They're going to try to pound us with Gibbs, who's having a phenomenal career. I mean, Gibbs himself has 67 targets and over 300 yards in the passing game alone. From a rushing standpoint, David Montgomery, 195 carries versus 154 of Gibbs. So Montgomery is clearly the starter, but they're only about 40 yards apart. So Montgomery, 910 yards on the season, Gibbs with 872. So I expect these guys to come out to do the ground and pound, win time of possession. Goff is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He looks like a tier 1 quarterback when he's coming off of play action. And so we're going to have to, if Bland or Gilly follow Amon-Ra, I think that allows us to bring in a safety and attack this offense a little bit better. The thing that I put in my notes here is that we can't continue to play soft coverage because these route runners and Amon-Ra, his kind of his go-to route seems to be either a 10-yard hook or a 10-yard post route, and they will pick us apart if we continue to peel back. So I want to see a little bit more kind of bump coverage. I do want to see a little bit more zone. It looks like zone blitzes and getting to Goff will be a great way to throw them off. Again, with these route runners, a lot of shallow crosses, which is very hard to defend when you're in man coverage. It can be challenging. So it's going to be interesting to see at the end of the day what DQ decides to come out with. But I just, I harped on this, and the reason for our loss with the Dolphins, if you look at that end of the first half and last fourth quarter drive, we were just way too soft on their wideouts. And if you do that against this team without any pressure, they have one of the best offensive lines in football. Numbers show I think they're around the top 5. If Parsons isn't able to get to him, or D-Law, and Odigizua has been quiet as well, I mean, it can turn into a long day. But here's what we have going for us, right? We have a 7-game at-home winning streak where we've been just completely dominant. Seahawks took us to the wire, but outside of that, we've shown that we can play top-tier defense and offense at home. One thing I liked about that Dolphins game is that we started with the ball. I would like to see that again in this game. So with that, I expect, I do expect our defense to be effective in getting not so much with the sacks, but the pressure figures, and I think that's going to bode well for our team overall. So where does that leave us with? That leaves us with here my prediction for this game. So we have likely the 3 seed coming into Dallas, and a playoff team, a potential playoff rematch. There are a potential playoff game that we may come across. It is possible. So also playoff implications. Detroit, hungry, looking to potentially secure a second or a first seed in the NFC. Dallas themselves, we're kind of put ourselves in a position where we are, looks like more likely than not, we're going to be the 5th seed. All right, unless the Eagles completely collapse against the Cardinals or the Giants. So who wants this game more? I think Detroit wants this game more for several reasons. But I think the Cowboys pull it off because I think in the locker room, again, the leadership, and even with our struggles, the locker room seems to be strong. The camaraderie, the trust in each other, the leadership, they all seem to believe in themselves outside of what the results have been showing. Whereas the Eagles locker room, there seems to be a lot more friction, just as a comparative standpoint. So this game, I have the Cowboys coming out on top. We don't get to 40, but I say 31-23. Cowboys win pretty comfortably, and we built that confidence we need. We have this strong statement win, but we can't let our guard down. We do also have to win the turnover battle. We haven't really been flashy with turnovers on defense since that Eagles matchup. I want to see another game or defensive game like that, where if we only allow 1 touchdown or something to that effect against this team, man, now the juices are flowing, and we're talking about a 3 seed here, a third seed in the NFC. So that's what I have for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. Again, you can follow us and catch us on Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook, Cowboys Takeover Podcasts. I'm Aaron James. Looking forward to catching up with you guys for our post game. Have a great weekend, and God bless.